Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host, on an adventure that hopefully you'll be able to preserve and promote a little bit better by the end of the discussion. Yeah, we're talking about photography. If they're anything like mine, your hunting photos could use an upgrade, and I have got the guy to help. You've seen his work on the covers of every major magazine. You've seen his, his work has made my words look way better. That's Brian Grossenbacher. His credits are all over the place in our world and in the fly fishing world too, so we'll talk about that as well. I apologize in advance. He'll join me to offer tips and advice that will make your social posts and your family photos, for that matter, look way better. In addition, we'll talk about gear for us geeks in the Fix It segment, and how much water are you carrying, especially this time of year, the warmer part of the season. You will chime in on all of that. Of course, it's all made possible by Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TruLock Choke Tubes, Purina Pro Plan Sport, Dog Food, Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Cable Gangs Tie-Out Systems, Pointer Shotguns, Heartland Lodge, and High Vis Sights. Well, just back, had a great time at Heartland Lodge, speaking of which. New ownership, more property, a new dog kennel building going up. It's very exciting over there near Nebo, Illinois at that Orvis endorsed lodge. It's been 10 years since I was back there. We made a few episodes, and for a lot of reasons I thought it'd be fun to go back. Ended up signing some books and talking to a few guests and having a great old time. Thank you, everybody, from Tim to Zach to Cy and everybody else who helped out over there. Had a great time. Can't wait to come back. You are hunting hard and keeping your dogs hydrated to a great degree. Yeah, I asked the question on social media. I carry as much as I can, which is probably your response in a nutshell as well. But I was just curious about how much water you carry for your dog on a typical hunt. And y'all deserve blue ribbons and gold medals for this. Austin Kelly says he carries 2 liters or more depending on the time of year. And then 2 more liters for yourself if you need them. Walt and Jess Hetland carry 2 times 32 ounces. Yeah, I think that's what's on my side. It's 32s. Yeah. And the 2 times 20 ounces for the dog. Okay. Well, it works out the opposite for us. And plus a hydration pack with another 1.5 liters. Yeah, Tim Hauer, I can relate. Early season chucker, 4 liters. You getting the message here, everybody? Dogs could use a lot more than we're probably getting. R.C. Phillips is the first to mention a squirt bottle. I love mine, and we'll use them, or even just a little the nozzle on a backpack style, water bladder. Teaching the dog to use those saves everybody a lot of trouble. I know there's an argument about waste. Some of that ends up on the ground instead of in the dog, but it's better than trying to dig through your vest and find a bowl, or to pour half of it on the ground with a normal store-bought water bottle. Jimmy Hutchins has a story for us. Reminds me of a hunt I took a couple guys for the first time, and they'd never seen a dog work. They asked if I had water for my dog because of how much ground he was covering so quickly. And I always have more than enough. That's the thing. And whether it's for you or the dog, here's how I look at it. It's an hour climb before we actually even load our guns most of the time. And then we hunt. And the last thing I want to do is run out of water and go all the way back down, refill it, and make another hour climb. So what's a few more pounds of weight? 2 Bota bags. Robert Murphy, thank you for bringing up the Bota bag, my favorite device for carrying water. They freeze pretty readily, and that seems to kill them. A good freeze and there's a rip somewhere in them, but they are so fun to use. For water, no. 4 liters for Dan Stewart in northern Colorado and ran out on a 7.5-mile hike. Yeah. Well, my goal is to squeeze the last drops out of Flick's water bottle as we see the truck. My dog drinks a lot from the creeks here in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. That's correct, Keith, in that, yeah, if there's reliable water, you can probably carry a little bit less. You know what I'm also carrying now? I'm carrying a SteriPen. There's a lot of versions, or there's a water filter or whatever, just in case. And I've only used it once. It was on some really ugly water in a trough at the top of a draw in the high desert of Central Oregon, of all places. Yeah, the cows had made themselves at home in there, but yeah, it was that bad. We needed it that bad, and it worked. At least I didn't get any complaints from Flick. So anyway, you're getting the idea, and I bring this all up not just because I'm curious, but because I think everybody might want to be a little bit more mindful of that early in the season. Worked with some old dogs, some young dogs, and a few in-between dogs, and it was a little warm over there at Heartland, and I was just grateful we had water spotted in various places, plus a bunch in our vests as well. So there you go. Thanks, everybody, for chipping in on that one. It was very informative and motivational. How's that? And that portion of the Upland Nation podcast brought to you by TrulockChokes.com. I've mentioned Chad Hodge signature chokes in the past. The Upland version of those choke tubes is now available, extensively tested with all sorts of pellet materials and shot sizes, every load you can think of in the range and in extreme hunting situations. Chad has come up with a pretty nice pair of chokes, and that's how they're being offered to you in 12 and 20 gauge. If you're looking for the ultimate pair of choke tubes, go to TrulockChokes.com, learn more about them over there. And thanks for reminding me, Felton, and appreciate your reaching out on that one as well. And, of course, this time of year, you get back at the end of the day. You want to at least make sure your gun is going to function the next day. So I dip into my box full of Sage and Breaker gun cleaning and gun care products. Learn more about what they have for you at sageandbreaker.com. From bore cleaning solvent to their cleaning, lubricating, and protecting spray, firearms grease for those really tight spots in certain types of joints. Sign up for the mailing list and you'll get the whole story on everything that's new coming down the pipeline. Plus, now Fred Bohm and his team are offering up some very helpful shooting, hunting tips of various sorts. And, of course, all those great videos on how to take care of your firearms. It's all at sageandbreaker.com. Well, as one editor said to me many years ago, I love your words, I hate your pictures. Luckily, my words have been rescued probably more than once, but at least once on a cover story for Shooting Sportsman magazine by Brian Grossenbacher. Brian is a pro photographer. He's one of us, and we've got a lot to talk about, particularly how to help you take better pictures for your social media, for your family, and for your dog. Brian Grossenbacher, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Scott. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, we had such a fun time when I approached you with this, and I know we will again because we share so many of the same things. When we were talking before, I found out you've led a life like mine. You went from fly fishing to bird hunting to photography to, give us a little bit of backstory from you.
Well, when I graduated from college and way back when, I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I made my way to Bozeman, Montana to go to graduate school at Montana State. And the true portion of my education came in the way of fly fishing. You know, I was going to classes a little bit, and I was fishing a lot. And I was working at the university, and the woman that I worked with, after about 2 months, she said, you know, I can already tell you're never going to make it in an office setting. Let me introduce you to a friend of mine, Gary Lewis. He was managing the fly fishing program at Lone Mountain Ranch in Big Sky. And she made the introduction, and Gary and I started fishing together, and soon enough he offered me a job to guide down in Big Sky, and that got me started guiding in 1992, which doesn't seem like a long time ago. It was a long time ago, Scott. But,
oh yeah. And by the way, that was long after I had been at Lone Mountain Ranch, which was a wonderful experience. So, yes, that was a while ago. Carry on.
Such a beautiful location, great people. And I just started guiding there, and then started my own guide service 3 years later. And that carried on for 18 years of guiding fly fishermen. And towards the end of my guiding, I got into photography, was asked to write a fly fishing guidebook to Montana. And when they gave me the photo budget, Scott, it was not enough to buy photos. It honestly wasn't enough to buy one photo. And I thought about it, and talked to my ex-wife Jenny, and she and I were running the guide service together, and we were working on this book project. And I said, you know, we're on the water a lot. I bet you we can buy a camera and a couple of lenses, and I think we can get a lot of these photos on our own if we put our minds to it. And turns out between the two of us, we were going to split the camera, and turns out I was the only one in the family that read the instruction manual. and so I fell in love with it, you know, and it was not something I was expecting. You know, I loved guiding, loved being a part of the fly fishing community. But when I discovered a different avenue in photography that would allow me to stay in that community and still fish and be with the people that I loved, but yet do something other than guide, it opened up really an unlocked, unknown passion, and really changed, you know, the trajectory of my adult life. I've been able to travel and work all over the world in some of the most remote, you know, jungles in the Amazon, Mongolia, Russia, the Bahamas, Belize, Mexico, Alaska, you know, you name it. I have been so fortunate to see some of the most beautiful places on the planet through photography.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the bird hunting and bird dog side in a moment, but just in general, what is it? What kind of made the light bulb go off over your head when you finally realized this is it? Was there something in particular that really got you going on that?
You know, that's interesting. There wasn't really a light bulb for me, but it was the reinforcement that I was getting from editors and other people in the magazine world, because I think I was shooting at that time. This was, just for point of reference, it was 2005 when I bought my first camera. And what was happening then was the film guys kind of hit a stumbling block because everything was going digital.
Yeah.
And magazines at that point stopped taking slide submissions, and everything was going digital. And a lot of the established photographers, the great ones, they just it kind of sent them on their back for a couple of years.
Sure,
and
yeah.
and I hit the ground running, and I was shooting differently. I wasn't a big fan of the grip and grin, the fishing equivalent of a tailgate photo for bird hunting. I just saw that there was so much more to fly fishing than just holding on to a fish. So someone rigging a fly, a wide scenic, the action of water glistening off of a net, as someone's netting a fish, all those things were exciting to me. And so I was capturing them from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And that's when the reinforcement started coming in, and folks like Orvis and Sims, and they started to recognize that. And very quickly it opened up into good jobs with wonderful companies and great people.
Yeah, and in fact, you are, in our world, you in effect made your mark. I know you were in it a long time before that, but of course you worked with my good friends Ronnie and Susanna Smith on their book, Guide to Upland Hunting, Training Bird Dogs from Orvis. But before that, you started shooting dogs and bird hunting adventures in the very same way. How do you make that switch?
A lot of my fly fishing friends were upland bird hunters, and it just became the natural progression. I've always enjoyed bird hunting, but as soon as I started following them around with my camera, bird hunting has another dimension over fly fishing. You've got the hunters, you've got the birds, but then you've got the dogs, and that is a massive part of the sport, and it's a massive part of the photography, and it just adds a different layer that when it gives you another element to shoot, and what a dynamic creature.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and that is something we don't have in the fly fishing world. It changes the as you said, the dynamic of any situation. Yeah. Let's get the formalities out of the way. What kind of a bird hunter are you?
You know what? I love, you know what? You put a dog down and a chance to chase wild birds. I'm in. And
yeah.
I don't really, I've done plenty of shoots over pin raised birds for different lodges, let's say in the Southeast, where maybe that's the only option they have.
Right.
Or I did a shoot once in Texas with a wonderful operation, and I was working on it with my friend Reed Bryant, and I said to him, Reed, this is like a pin bird operation. Like, what are we gonna shoot? What's this gonna be like? And he said, yeah, I don't know, Scott. When 2 days, 3 days later, when I came out of there, I left with an entirely different perspective. What I saw and witnessed were smiles and happy clients, and it wasn't just because they were killing things. It was because so many people were getting introduced to the sport.
Yeah.
And they had early success. And it was handled in a tasteful way. There was nothing about excess.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about learning and having fun and being safe. And I walked away from that experience really with my with a kind of a paradigm shift in my head about what a pen raised hunt can do for the sport. And it's not for everyone. It's not for everybody that's going to go out and hunt. But I'll tell you, those smiles were real, and people were having a great time, and they were learning. And I think that those are all great things for our sport.
Yeah, well, you almost sound like a TV commercial for hunting at a lodge or a preserve, and I can't echo that any more strongly than you put it. It is one of the ways to effectively introduce newcomers to the sport, and they can go as far as they want after that, and that's the key. So
absolutely.
So let's drill down just a little bit on this whole idea. Whether you're at a lodge in Georgia or you're on the prairies in Montana, what are the things that you shoot that we maybe don't even think about shooting that really make better photos than, as you put it, the grip and grin at the end of the day? We're out there and we got our cell phone, and we're trying to hunt and we're trying to take pictures both. What pictures could we take that might just make our social post pop a little bit?
I think the biggest thing there is, with every hunt, with every walk, try to tell a story. Try to tell a story about the location, the people, the dogs, and the birds. And that can be done. It's kind of like you're putting together a puzzle. And with every photo, you're snapping a piece that is going to come together into the larger picture. And so, a lot of times I'll start with a wide scenic of the area, and even, stepping back as people are gearing up at the car, run off, try to find some elevated area and just get a wide shot of the people. There's always banter going on back and forth as people are lacing up their boots. And then the dogs are coming out, and so, kind of getting just a wide shot of that sets the scene. But then it becomes, starting to put the pieces together. Maybe it's a tight shot of someone lacing up their boots, where it's just their hands in the boots, and a leather glove on a gun stock. It's those parts and pieces that will start to come together to create, what we're after, who we're with. As the hunt starts, it's kind of fun. The hunt oftentimes mirrors the personality of the people that I'm joining, and it's just kind of fun to kick back and just see what transpires. And those moments create themselves. It's every bird hunt we've all been there, where it just goes from walk to 0 to 60 right now. And and the biggest thing is, if you really want to concentrate on the photography, you've got to leave your gun behind. It's I'm sorry, I've watched people, try to do both, and it's a disservice to everyone involved, including those people that have to look at the pictures later. It'll change the way you think about the hunt as well, because you're no longer hunting. You're looking, you're observing, you're seeing, you're taking in the bigger picture. And so, maybe dedicate a single walk to over the course of the hunt, to just tagging back with the camera. And
no, I love that idea, and I know you and I have talked about that once before, a long time ago. It's absolutely true. I mean, even down to practical things. How do you hold a camera while you got a shotgun cradled in your arms, for example?
Exactly.
all of those things. But the idea of literally and figuratively stepping back and being able to take it in visually as a photographer instead of as a bird hunter for a moment or for an hour, that all rings true. I shared something with there was a photographer along with us at an Orvis Endorsed Lodge a few days back. And I shared with her something that I learned from one of my television camera guys. And that is, if you watch most TV shows, especially bird hunting shows, what you get a lot of is the back of people's heads. Mm-hmm. And we all know why, and there is a reason for that from a safety standpoint, but there's no reason you can't get faces at other times in other places. I just made a rhyme. But agree with me, you've got to, Brian Grossenbacher, pro photographer. Aren't faces a lot better than backs of heads?
Yes, absolutely they are. And you know, a lot of that can be done too with just general communication.
Yeah.
And knowing who you're hunting with.
Yep.
You know, you always want to be safe, but oftentimes if I'm going to venture out of the line of hunters, so to speak, and venture ahead or venture up to a different elevation, I am talking with everyone so that they know where I am, and I'm also I probably overdo my fair share of orange. You know, I want to make sure that I'm visible out there. But absolutely, Scott, to get a different perspective, to get the faces, is just such a wonderful perspective.
You move a lot too when you're shooting and just shooting. You know, we got to be a little more careful. We're talking about hunting, but we're talking about shooting with cameras too. When you're photographing, those different perspectives are sometimes the things that make your pictures stand out. What are some other ways to do that? We use verticality a lot on TV, and sometimes it's a ladder. Sometimes it's a high spot. Sometimes it's a tailgate, whatever it is. What other ways can we change the perspective a little bit on a hunt?
Well, that's a great point. You know, most digital cameras now, and when you're shooting with your phone, you know, you've got a pretty good view of the display. And so a lot of times I will drop my camera to waist level, or if it's a situation, I'll lay on the ground. If it's a somewhat of a stable situation, we're not moving a lot.
Yeah.
So, and what that does is it lowers the camera so you're looking up at the subject, but it removes the horizon. So often, if we're standing, if you and I are standing and I'm holding the camera up to my face and I'm shooting you, that horizon is in the background cutting you in half somewhere. And a lot of times it's cutting you in half right at face level or head level. And that is such a distraction to me as a viewer of a photo. So by lowering the camera, you then silhouette the person against the sky, you know, or maybe it's a tree line, but you don't have the horizon cutting right through your beautiful picture.
That is so perceptive, and you defined it, you explained it so well. It's absolutely true. I'm lucky enough to have two camera guys with me on a TV show, and Lynn. God bless you, Lynn. I'm glad I don't cover your laundry bill, because he is always on his knees or worse, particularly when it comes to getting dog shots. And I want to talk more about dogs in particular, but also the whole game, and I mean game in all the definitions. in the second half of the show. So hang loose. Brian Grossenbacher is shot for everybody in our world from a commercial standpoint, and then all that adventure stuff. You know, I'd love to see the back pages of your passport someday, Brian. You've got some incredible destinations in there. And we've all seen your work everywhere, from Field and Stream to Shooting Sportsman. You name it, he's been there. We'll talk more with Brian in just a moment. Of course, we'll also go back, and I'm going to talk about the difference between Sharpies and Huns in our Fix It segment. Okay, about their cover. That's all coming up on the Upland Nation podcast after a quick commercial message from Pro Plan Sport. Yeah, laying in a big supply right now. We're hitting the road for 3 weeks, so I've got a whole bunch of Pro Plan Sport dog food already in the truck, and I always bring more than I need, but that's better than the opposite, isn't it? The reason I am so hot on this food is because it's just the right amount of hotness. It's a high-protein formula with real meat as the first ingredient, 100% complete and balanced nutrition for active dogs, and we're in the active season. 30% protein, 20% fat, high in calories, fuel your dog's energy throughout the season, and they love it. I was sitting there today watching my dog eat his breakfast, and believe me, you can tell when they like what they're eating. And if you can't tell when your dog is happy, well, you got to spend more time up close and personal with your dog. Go to ProPlansport.com and learn more about all the formulations of Purina Pro Plan Sport dog food. Yeah, and if you're looking at your barrel after every missed shot, it's probably not bent, but maybe you do need a change. And maybe you need to change from a, pump to a side-by-side, or a over and under to a semi-auto. Whatever it is, the choices are myriad at PointerShotguns.com. I've made a big study of this new FT12 semi-auto for you, so I could learn more about them and explain to you that sometimes some of us are better off with that semi-auto. Everything from, an extra shell if you really need it, to the way it fits you, the way it swings, the balance. All of those things matter. And a side-by-side versus an over and under versus a semi-auto, they're all different. Take a look at all of them and then start looking for your very own next shotgun. Of course, you can pick up a Pointer shotgun at Bass Pro, Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, Turner's Outdoorsman, and hundreds of independent dealers. Go to PointerShotguns.com and find a dealer, and then start shopping. Welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. On the other end of this discussion, pro photographer, this guy knows his stuff, Brian Grossenbacher. And hey, Brian, welcome back to the podcast. And let me just plug your website, because if you folks like his work, you might want to get some of it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that works, Brian?
Oh, thank you, Scott. Yeah, you can. I have some of my shots on my website, www.grossenbacherphoto.com. Also on Instagram at Brian Grossenbacher. But if you see something you like, or you're just looking for an upland shot or a fly fishing shot, there's a very good chance that I have something that you may enjoy, may like on your wall. And you can, if you don't see something you like, send me an email, because I can send you a collection to take a look at, and you can pick your favorite shot, and we can knock a print out in a big hurry, and soon enough you'll have a shot that you like hanging on your office wall or in your living room. But yes, sir. GrossenbacherPhoto.com.
Excellent. And some great stuff. Even if you just want to look at great photography, that's a good place to do it. Brian, I want to get back briefly to to that other topic that you and I share, and that's fly fishing. You told me a story, and I hope you don't mind if I ask you to tell it to everybody else. You are going through an airport somewhere, and you said to your companion,
but it was so funny. I was walking through, had just met my wife, Jenny. And obviously when I say just met, we were standing in line together at the Tampa airport and we started talking. And this was 2.5, 3 years ago. And at the end of the flight, we continued to talk and we're walking through the Denver airport. And here is a 30-foot long picture of Oprah. And I just said, I taught Oprah to fly fish. And it was such an icebreaker, and it was met with disbelief. And it's like, no, it's true. I for the last season of her show, I taught Oprah to fly fish on the Merced River in California. The woman that is now my wife said, you know what? I literally just bought all of the things to fly fish and have always wanted to learn. And I said, I think I might know someone that can teach you. And and that was almost 3 years ago now, and we got married at the end of April.
I love it. So it does work. And did you end up teaching her, or were you smart enough to know that that's probably not a good idea?
You know what we did, Scott? I guided for 18 years, and an old timer told me once. He said, "Listen, you're young now." He goes, "But when your guide days are gone, they're gone." And I'll tell you what, we went down that path, and it was, I just said, hey, let's go up to Scott Lake Lodge in Canada. And we went to the most amazing pike fishing operation that I have been to. And I get to travel a ton, but Scott Lake Lodge is a special one. But she and I went up there, and Scott, without exaggeration, she landed probably 50 pike a day. She landed 5 over 40 inches over the course of the week. Just an amazing experience. And the best part was she learned from an amazingly talented guide. And
yep.
And I could just sit back and fish a little and take photos, and everybody was happy.
That's all right, everybody. Pay attention. Let's just say it once for the record. Never teach your spouse to fly fish or bird hunt. Let somebody else get all the glory.
Leave that to the professional. And you know, on top of that, I got to sit in the drift boat, for 18 years and watch these husbands, try to tell their wives how to fly fish, from the back of the boat. Yeah. I'd really like you to teach my wife to fly fish today, but, I'll be back here. Just making sure that, you don't miss anything.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that one more time. Thank you.
Right. So, after 18 years of watching that, I finally got to put it into practice. And so I kept my mouth shut.
Good. Yeah.
And it was just a great experience. But it's funny you remembered that moment. But it was the universe put us in front of each other that day. My wife Jenny and I, and for that we're both truly blessed.
Well, good for you, and I'm glad it's worked out so far. I don't mean it that way, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Let's get back to taking pictures of bird hunting stuff, because that's what I'm really interested in this time of year. We got a chance to chronicle our season, the people we're with, the dogs we enjoy, and that's kind of, in a nutshell, these are the reasons we go, Brian. Beautiful places, wonderful people, and incredible dogs. So I want to focus, pardon the pun. I want to take a few minutes to talk about the dogs. And we joke about it because, they never cooperate. You need to get them to hold still. So do we sometimes in TV. But most of the time they'd rather be doing something else than being a part of a picture taking session. And granted, you got a fast, we don't use shutters anymore, I guess, per se, but you can take pretty good pictures of moving animals if you're ready for it. Help us take better dog pictures. Start with the basics, and then let's go a little deeper into that.
I think the basic thing for me, what I observed and learned is that I'm not going to be able to affect what a dog does any more than I can push a rope, know? So I let the dog do its thing, and I control what I can control, which is to keep the camera ready, to keep it shooting. And when the dogs are moving the way they are, a high ISO is going to be your best friend. If you're, shooting with a digital SLR or a mirrorless camera, 640 ISO is a pretty good starting point. And Scott, you mentioned, your camera guy that's constantly on his knees, taking low angle shots, and especially of the dogs. It's a wonderful perspective, but it's hard because those things are moving around and you're trying to keep up with it while you're on your knees, which isn't a good thing. But let's say that you see the downed bird before the dog does. Oftentimes I'll run over to the bird and get in position, and while the dog is still sniffing and looking around, and I can hold the camera to the ground and get that low angle shot, but I'm relying on the autofocus of the camera. A little bit. I'm shooting with a wide angle lens at that point, with the camera down low, shooting up. So I've got the bird in the foreground, and the dog, when it comes in, will be, very close in the background. But if that moment is going to be over in less than a second, that dog is going to come in and grab the bird and hits off. And so you've got to be ready. And the high ISO will increase your shutter speed and help you to get that crisp shot. And hopefully, your camera's autofocus, will grab the dog or will grab the bird. If you're a little more practiced, you can put your focal point on the bird. So that when the dog does come in, the bird will be in focus. But you want to have sharp focus on the eyes of the dog. When it has the bird in its mouth, that's the first thing that the viewer will look at and it's just human nature. And whether you're taking a portrait of a person, a dog, a fish, if that eye is not in focus, for me, it's going in the delete bin. It's going in the trash pile. Because it's not pleasing to us, the viewer. So, high ISO, start at 640 if you've got a good camera and will allow it. 800, 1,000. I rarely go above 1,200. Things get too pixelated and noisy, even with, Nikon's flagship cameras. They all say they can shoot to the moon. Well, yeah, you can do it, but it doesn't look great at the end of the day. So high ISO, if you're shooting with a mirrorless camera, and you're just, kind of learning, getting started, aperture priority is your friend. Take take one of the numbers out of it. Just go to aperture priority. Think about what you want your depth of field to be, and let the camera do the work on the shutter speed. And as long as is in most daylight hunting situations, you can shoot up to f8 and get pretty good shutter speeds with ISO 640. And go ahead.
Well, two things that I'm going to say them out loud because I need to remember them all the time. And I'm lucky. I work with people who think like you and are also very instinctive. In fact, when they're taking pictures of flying birds, they're shooting better and more instinctively than I ever am with a shotgun. But the first is anticipate what the dog is. We know our dogs. We know the hunting situations. We know what's going to happen next, and we can get set up for that picture. That's number one. And number two, the idea that you focus, I used to think it was just focusing on the dog's face, but the eye is, if we can do that, that's a great hint, first off, and it does work. So those are two things that I think really would help me. And even with a cell phone camera, which is what most of us are going to do most of the time, we can do much of that, can't we?
Yeah, and most cell phones are doing that for you already.
Yeah, there you go.
They're recognizing, faces and eyes, and so they're pulling that for you. So, you can get yourself into that position, get the bird in focus, and set your iPhone to burst mode and just let her rip, it's, letting the dog do its thing and working around it and trying to capture that beauty is just a great way to go.
Yeah, and that's another one. Posing a dog is almost impossible most of the time. We all try to do it, and we've done it a million times, but letting the dog do what it wants to do or needs to do it just probably ends up being a better opportunity for you.
Yeah. Dogs are worse actors than people, and you just for me, my perspective on and philosophy on photography is to just disappear and have people forget that I'm there, and let them do what they do best, which is hunt birds or fly fish, and the sooner they forget about me, the better. And the same goes with dogs. A setup photo with a dog looks just like a setup photo of a dog.
Let's just get this one off my chest and check me on this. When I made the first high definition hunting show for
yeah. You were telling me that. That's amazing.
And so, and anybody who watches TV now may not understand, but at one point, what you watch on TV was pretty much a square picture. 4:3 was the proportion. You go to high definition and it's 13:9, so it's a much wider frame. And I remember one of my camera guys saying, the great part about this is with that wide frame, you don't have to be right on the bird when it flushes because you've got that whole frame to catch him in. What about us with a cell phone camera? It's so easy for us to just hold it upright and take those square pictures, or those the opposite 9:13 pictures. But is there some benefit to going to the trouble of turning our phone sideways and getting it more panoramic?
Oh, I certainly think so. To get that wide sweeping angle is a beautiful thing, and so much happens in a rectangle. It's kind of it's the way that we see. I think at the end of the day that is a much better perspective, especially in a sport as dynamic as bird hunting, where in a matter of seconds, the birds are out of the frame.
Yeah.
And the shot's gone. It's over, and you may not get another chance. So yeah, absolutely. Holding that phone sideways is a great route.
I'm glad to hear it from a pro. It's just been a pet peeve of mine for a long time, and I know it works. Let's go to, well, a good way to kind of wrap things up, post-production. Brian, I know that you've made my stories better, not only with a well-framed up, well-shot picture, but you did something magical after you took the picture. If we want to do some things that just add that one extra star to our 4-star picture, what can we do in, a simple photo management app?
I'm gonna just twist your question a little bit. Some of the best advice that I got from another photographer when I started was crop with your camera. And what he meant by that was frame your shot before you take it, have it in your mind what you're going to shoot, and frame your shot and crop with your camera so that you're not having to do it in post. And there's everybody always says, hey man, it must be so awesome that you don't have to pay for film anymore. It's just so cheap. You can just spray and pray and shoot as many shots as you want. And that could not be farther from the truth, because what you don't pay for in film, you pay for in time. And, whatever, I've got the whatever my Nikon, flagship camera body is, it shoots way more frames per second than I could ever use. And to just put my finger on the shutter and let it rip, I think it's 30 frames per second.
Wow. That's what we shoot on TV.
Right. I don't want to have to go back through at the end of the trip and run through the exact same photo with, if you waste shots while you're shooting, it's going to kill you on the back end, and it can be absolutely demoralizing. And I have done it. I'm guilty of it. And it seems like for me, if it's the more boring the shoot, it's like the more shots I take. I'm expecting something great is going to come out of nothing. But you just have to carefully monitor what you're shooting and think about it. There's a difference between letting things happen and knowing the shots that you're going to take. Let's say you're on a hunt and it's 6 hours long. You need to kind of have a checklist in your mind of the shots that you want to get, and it may be a tight shot of a hunter raising the gun to his shoulder, and it's going to happen fast, and you want it to be real. It doesn't look the same, Scott, if you wait until the shoot's over and you say, hey, I really wanted to get a shot of you pulling, mounting your gun. Could you do it real quick here by the car?
Yeah.
Not the same. Kind of have a mental checklist of what you want to shoot to tell your story, and be ready to shoot that, and dedicate the time to shoot just that. So that okay, click, I've got that. Let's kind of move on to the next thing. And okay, I want to get a dog retrieving a bird. I want to get the birds flushing. Now you change your camera settings for that. You get set up for that mental thought. But you're always ready for something else to happen. But keep a checklist in the back of your mind, and always keep the camera ready and crop within the camera.
Love that. Let's end on this note because it's another pet peeve of mine, and I'm wondering how a real pro handles this. At the end of the day, there are birds, and they are dead, and they end up piled up somewhere. Besides the classic tailgate picture of a body pile, how would you treat a dead bird or several dead birds? How would you respect and honor the whole experience, and particularly the birds themselves at the end of a hunt? What are things we can do differently than just a body pile?
You know, so many birds, their plumage is just it's just crazy beautiful. You know, pheasants, sharptail. A lot of times, that's when I'll pull out the macro lens and I will start to kind of tabulate the sum of the parts, you know, and maybe get a breast shot of the bird, you know, with the symmetry of the feathers, or maybe a wing shot, you know, maybe a tight shot of the head, or the outstretched wing. I try to avoid, you know, the massive lineup of birds on the tailgate.
Yeah.
You know, that happens. For me, it's one of those where, you know, a little bit goes a long way, and it's you know, sort of like lingerie is a little more, a little better to look at than the naked body. You know, you want to have a little bit of this, maybe a glimpse into it, but you don't need to tell the whole story with, you know, everyone holding up their limit. And, you know, proud moment for all, but sometimes the, you know, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole.
I love that. And thanks. That's a great way to describe it right there. I shouldn't be surprised you got such great advice for us, whether you're shooting a cheap cell phone camera or one of those fascinating big, I guess we still call them SLRs, but they're different inside now mostly. That's Brian Grossenbacher. He's, I mean, if you're seeing stuff for YETI or Orvis or Sims, case knives, every single magazine in our world and all those other worlds in the fly fishing side, he's probably there. And again, I got to thank you. You have bailed my stories out at least a couple, 3 times. If you want to learn more about what Brian does and maybe get a hold of something he's done and put it on your wall, go to grossenbacherphoto.com. I'll put a link in the show notes for that. Brian, I can't thank you enough. It's been, I think it's been forever since we talked on the podcast, and I'm glad we did it. And I hope that somewhere down the road this season, we might even cross paths. Thanks so much for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. Have a great day.
Take care.
And we're going to talk a little bit about something that hey, I have an original idea, and you get to hear about it. Sharpies versus Huns. I've kind of made a little bit of a study of that, and maybe some of the habitat observations I made will help you, let's say the next time you're going out there looking for those 2 prairie birds. That'll be coming up after a word from Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. They're out there hunting right now. They know what you need when it comes to a new shotgun. So let's talk to Dave Fiedler about that. If you're looking for a gun and you think you need some advice, call Dave. Go to midvalleyclays.com. Get the phone number. Talk to him about what kind of hunting you do, what kind of birds you're chasing, where you're going, what you're shooting now. He'll probably have a line on a gun in stock or able to get some of those hard-to-find models, especially in the Browning line. They've got a large selection of field-grade guns right now, ready for you. Ship anywhere. Make Dave Fiedler at midvalleyclays.com your first stop. And then get yourself some high-vis sights and see what you've been missing. Yeah, new gun, old gun, you want to improve your shooting, that's an easy way to do it. They work for me. I swap them out. I go from shotgun to shotgun, still looking for one that'll help me hit more birds, but the high-vis sight gets me a little bit closer, pardon the pun, to the birds. Patented interlocking light pipes. You can swap them out, like I said, various colors depending on the conditions you're up against. And some just work better for some people than others. And they also have some if you need something in particular fixed. For example, cross dominance. Learn more. Go to highvissights.com. Sharpies or Huns? What's going to be there? Well, yes, there is some crossover, and we're going to fix this issue as much as we can. Birds are birds. They're going to be where they are. But if you are interested in knowing what will likely be in a certain kind of cover, well, let me offer up a few suggestions. These have come to me over the last few years as I've, number one, encountered way more Hungarian partridge than I ever had 10 years ago. And number two, my ongoing obsession with sharp-tailed grouse. They do like different cover as a general rule. The distinction is very clear. Huns are smaller birds, and maybe that's why they like shorter grasses. They'll generally be a little bit nearer seed crops and even civilization, whether it's an old farmyard or alongside a couple, abandoned roads, for example. They're also coming more and more into what I call chucker light country. Yeah, there can be some hills, some bare patches. The rocks are smaller. The slopes are gentler. Those things will often harbor Huns these days. And in fact, what's funny is lots of times now, I'm talking to lots of people are finding Huns in bare, rocky ground. Maybe they were pushed there. Maybe they're just hanging out. This colorblind hunter doesn't see them in that stuff as much as maybe some others. Now, sharptails, on the other hand, if you're after them in particular, they're going to be, generally speaking, where the grass is tall enough to bend in the wind. I think a biologist from Montana for that one. Yeah, so, knee high or maybe even a little bit higher than that for the most part. And it will have fewer rocks, more gentle hills, kind of knolls and that sort of thing. And a lot of times those birds will be near the top of those hills, or at least their lookout will be, and the rest of the flock will be a little bit further down the hill, but all close together. Fewer rocks, more hills, and sometimes near crops, especially alfalfa, and not because they eat that, but they eat the grasshoppers that live there. That's the sharp-tail country versus the Hun country, at least in my observations. Hope that fixed it for you as well. And on that note, thank you, Brian Grossenbacher. GrossenbacherPhoto.com is where you'll learn more about what he's doing, and just drool over all those photos. And if you want one, Brian can print it for you. Thank you all for listening, of course. If you enjoyed the podcast, please tell one person. That's how we grow in this world. If you commented at the social platforms, whether I use your comment or not, thank you. I read them all. I sure enjoy them. Please leave a rating or a review at Apple Podcasts. And thank you to our sponsors: Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Trulock Choke Tubes, Pointer Shotguns, Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Heartland Lodge, and Cable Gang's Stakeout Systems, and High Viz Shooting Systems. Sign up for the newsletter at findbirdhuntingspots.com. Always something of interest in there. And I will see you in the field until we meet back here again very soon. Thanks again. I'm Scott Linden with the Upland Nation Podcast.